Hello and welcome to the Battle Line Podcast, where we have conversations on the collision of space between community, faith, and culture. I'm here, your host, Matt Satterley, and with me here is the editor of Peer Magazine, my co-host on this podcast, the world famous co-host in life, Jamie Satterley. Jamie, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good.
The sun is shining.
It's not shining today, so okay. I couldn't say it. I had to leave my line out.
All right. We also have with us here our co-host, producer, the one who really makes this whole thing run, the world famous Elizabeth. Elizabeth, how are you doing today?
World famous again. Sorry, Elizabeth.
I'm super swell. I'm stoked to be here.
Elizabeth, last time we talked, you said no matter how cold it gets in Alexandria, you were wearing your flip-flops, your sandals. Has that continued since the last time we talked?
That is correct. And they're actually platform sandals, just to make them even cooler. So I'm going to brag.
The 90s called. They want their
They're so hip.
Listen, it's all coming back. It's all coming back around.
Got my butterfly clips and ready to rock.
All right, we're super excited about today's episode where we get to speak with the Territorial Youth Secretaries from our homeland, the Southern Territory. Yay, that's right. So we have with us today Majors Tim and Cheryl Gilliam. They've been divisional youth leaders and are now in charge of youth ministry across the entire Southern Territory. So in this role, they've developed a new kind of plan, a new vision coming out of COVID that we're going to talk a little bit about and see kind of their thoughts on youth ministry in general. So we've worked with Tim and Cheryl a lot in the past. They've been mentors, and then we've gotten to serve alongside them and also underneath their leadership. So we're very excited to talk to them today. How are you guys?
Hey, we're doing good. Thanks for having us.
Hey. Yeah.
And we'll pay you afterwards for your kind words.
Well, listen, again, thanks for coming on with us. So first off, there are people who listen to this podcast who aren't in the United States. So tell us again, just we always ask this question first. Tell us a little bit about yourselves, your responsibilities. And then for those people who don't know, what part of the United States does the Southern Territory cover?
So Cheryl and I have the blessing and the privilege to oversee all of the Salvation Army's youth and young adult ministries in the southeastern United States. That covers the 15 southeastern states and the District of Columbia. So we go as far north as Maryland, as far south as the tip of Florida, and as far west as Texas and Oklahoma. So we cover a pretty wide area, but tell you, it's really a blessing to do what we do.
Yeah. And to tell you a bit about ourselves, we have 3 children, JAM, that's how we remember them, Jacob, Ashley, and Michael.
I like that you have to have an acronym to remember your children. That's awesome.
Jacob is 26, and he is about ready to enter into the Evangeline Booth College in the fall, so we're excited about that. Ashley is 24, and Michael is 18, and he's getting ready to graduate.
Yeah, we were talking before the podcast about feeling old.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and he's getting ready to head into his sister's footsteps and head to Asbury University.
Is he? So he's been able to go in person. Is he going to have in-person graduation?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
There's a limited amount of tickets because of COVID, but yes, they're going to have in person.
Scalper outside. I got two.
He actually went to the prom too, so that was really, really a great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Great
it's good to see life getting back to some sort of normal.
Absolutely.
So we've asked this question of every TYS so far, and let me tell you, I don't know if you've heard their stories. They have been wild.
We've had to edit. We've had to edit some of them.
We've had to do some editing. What is the kind of funniest thing that you ever experienced at camp or in youth ministry? A favorite story?
It's funny because one that pops into my head right now is it has to do with you, Tim. It doesn't have anything to do with me. It has to do with TYI.
Let's hear it. Let's go.
No, I don't want to tell his story. So we'll tell you afterwards. It has something to do with like a bunch of guys that are now officers that were sitting in their cabin playing cards. Naked.
Listen, at the Battle Line podcast, we name names. Just put them out there. Put their business right out there.
I think they're.
Yeah, I'm surprised Cheryl even remembered that story. I would imagine this is a very family friendly podcast. So I'm not really able to share the wackiest story, but one that came to mind immediately was one year Cheryl and I decided to open up a youth council. It was the very first thing out of the blocks with an all-male timber drill. And we thought we were going to be the funniest thing that's ever hit the youth council circuit, but it actually was really good and it was well received. So the joke was on us.
You played yourself.
We had a standing ovation and they wanted us to do it again. So
listen,
that's
awesome.
That's one story that came to
Colonel
mind.
Bill Mockabee would be ashamed of you. I'm just saying.
Well, he inspired us to joke on timbrels, and it ended up being really good.
Didn't you guys like wear pink button-up shirts too?
We did. We had pink uniform shirts.
Nice. Is there video evidence of this somewhere?
And did that timber
I'm
brigade?
sure there is. Yeah.
Did that timber brigade perform again a second time?
No.
Okay.
There was a request for the group to perform again, but all the guys, including myself, said no way.
Once it got serious, Tim's like, I'm out, tapping out.
All right, Cheryl, last chance. Do you need to tell the naked people?
I mean, I'm not going to
story?
give names. I mean, that's pretty much it. They were trying to embarrass their counselor, which was Tim. This was back when he was lieutenant.
So if I'm understanding, here's how the story is going in my head. Tim opened the door. There were a bunch of naked dudes playing cards.
Just kind of saying like,
Yeah,
go fish. Do you have a 6? Anybody?
They were having conversations like, I hope they have lasagna for lunch tomorrow. What do you think? Are you going to go swimming or go horseback riding without a stitch of clothes on? They're having like normal conversations. So, and most of those guys are officers today.
Check the show notes for the names of those Salvation Army.
My lips are sealed, guys. Love my peeps.
No, listen, we really wanted to bring you in because when the coronavirus hit, like life just changed immediately, right? And you guys down south, we heard about you guys and what you did something very cool. Like you took the pause and redeemed the time is what I guess I kind of think. You took the time of the pause and you really took that time to evaluate the state of youth ministry in the Salvation Army in the South. So tell us a little bit about that. Why did you decide to do this? Was it kind of forced upon you, or how did the process go? Tell us a little bit about that.
So, when everything started with Corona and everything was shut down, we heard rumblings of CORE doing this and that. Church in the Box came out of Corona or out of the pandemic, so people were doing things. No one was just sitting on their hands, right? But as territorial youth leaders, we had this impromptu call and just were kind of like, what are you guys doing? Like, how are you making the way through? Do you see a vision for the future? And out of that conversation came just some non-negotiables, I think, that we all talked about and said, out of the youth department, these are the things that really we need to be concentrating on. And that is evangelism, discipleship, and leadership development. And after the conversation, we kind of stepped back a little bit, wrote some notes, and just began to pray into it and say, God, what do you want us to do? Like, what do we do with this? Because we're desperately trying to resource the field, but honestly, they were coming up with stuff on their own. So it wasn't that they needed an immediate fix for that. So we thought, wow, God has given us this opportunity to pause and to reset some things possibly. And so we just kind of started praying and fleshing out some things. And then we had a meeting with our DYLs in September, which we were so fortunate to have an in-person meeting. And we decided to say, or to go through a process of what are we doing now? What's working within our system of programs? What's not working? And how can we pivot and begin to change our mindset from being programmatic driven to biblically mandated evangelism, discipleship, leadership development?
Was that a change with programs? Were you saying, well, some of these programs have to go away, or just sort of a reevaluation of them? We've come to the conclusion, and I'm sorry to say it may have taken the pandemic for us to come to this conclusion. The pandemic gave us some time and space to kind of really think about what we do. And
it's not rocket science, but what worked in 1955 may not be working in 2021 and beyond. But that's just the truth. And so we really asked the question, where do our young people need to be and how do we get them there? And so if moonbeams and character building programs aren't the method to do what we need to do, then what will work? And so that's how we kind of came to this. And Cheryl said it earlier. We asked the question, what do we do well? What don't we do well? And how do we improve? And so that was kind of the genesis. And so based on those conversations, we were able to compile a lot of information. And then we put together what we're calling a philosophy document to move forward. And we're hoping that it's starting to catch fire, kind of underground, unofficial. But we're hoping that early in 2022, we can actually roll this out officially. We're getting a lot of good feedback from people who have seen the document and they've been part of the conversation. So
yeah, and to really speak to your question, it's not necessarily about scrapping programs, right?
Right.
It's more of it's more of not having to have the standard of every one of those programs in your core. Okay, and so what are you doing in a core to evangelize? What are you doing to evangelize young people? What are you doing to disciple? And what are you doing for leadership training? If one of those programs that we already have is working, then, by all means, don't throw it out. Keep doing it. Keep using. We have really good curriculum. What we need to do is try to customize per core, right? And to make it something that fits into a core context instead of mandating it for everybody.
And the key to the success of this is really because it's created at the front line level. And so the youth leaders and the core officers on the front lines are coming up with their own goals and their own strategy. We're providing some possible resources or ideas and coming alongside to encourage. And so we started something in the South. The old core standard has kind of disappeared. We're starting something called the battle plan. And the battle plan kind of simplifies the old core standard, and it's created. The goals are created by the local core, and so then it goes up the tree, up the ladder for an approval. But we want to come alongside those core to make sure that every one of our young people, our young adults, are getting what they need spiritually speaking.
Yeah, I love so much two things about what you said. One, that you took the time, that you took this opportunity to really stop and reflect, because it really is true in the Salvation Army. Everything moves so quickly, or time moves so quickly. You don't always have the time to stop and reflect. You might, feel in your spirit or know, okay, we probably need to make the adjustment to this, but having the time to stop and to kind of dream that out, we just don't always have that space. So I love that you took this opportunity. Sometimes I've wondered throughout this pandemic, are we taking advantage of what's being given to us? Instead of trying so hard to go back to normal, are we taking advantage of this forced break to really see like what new and beautiful thing could come out of it? And so I'm very excited as I hear your thoughts and have spoken with you about all this, about what could come out of it. I also love that the South is embracing the opportunity not to have a complete mandate for every single core, because Baltimore, Maryland is very different from Fayetteville, Arkansas, and what works in one, it doesn't necessarily work in the other one.
Right.
And so to allow people to dream their own plan for the context that they're in, I think is going to be a new and exciting thing. So I'm excited to watch from afar and see what comes out of all of this.
Yeah, and we really feel like God is doing something, not just in the Salvation Army, but in the Church Universal. And there's this anticipation that something's about ready to break forth with youth and young people and young adults. I'm speaking of revival. And the thing is that programs cannot contain revival, right? But our biblical mandates and the way we follow Scripture to teach and to equip, that does carry revival through prayer. And so that's really kind of the foundation of what Raise is we want to raise children up in the way of Jesus. And we want to introduce them to Jesus. We want them to grow in Jesus. And we want them to become leaders, not just in the Salvation Army. I mean, we want them to be leaders in the Salvation Army, but we want them to be leaders of the kingdom, right? So it is a very kingdom mindset and not just like, again, programmatic. And so, and, again, this is all concept. This is all on a document ready to, I think it is catching fire because I think it's a God thing. How it rolls out is to be seen. But I really feel like God's saying to us right now, like, I need you to recalibrate, I need you to reset, and I need you to understand that I'm doing this because pretty soon something's about ready to break loose, and you need to be positioned to contain it and to be able to equip those who come into your places of worship.
Yeah, that's great. I think you're right that the young people, there's such a potential in this generation. So often it's easy, I think, for us to focus on kind of the negative trends that you see in Gen Z, like they have only 4% have a biblical worldview, or Gen Z is twice as likely as other generations to identify as atheist. And we kind of get bogged down in those things. But I also think about the potentials for Gen Z, how passionate they are, how concerned they are, how they know how to mobilize for a cause. And I think that if we were able to embrace all of those things, the possibilities are endless. It's such a beautiful potential for the future. So I'm very excited to see how they affect the world and how what the church can look like if we just let them be who they are.
We forget, Jamie, that we walk by faith, not by sight. And so when we look at this generation and we point out all those things that you just mentioned, we forget that we serve a God who actually created them, and he's about ready to set them on fire. And we as leaders better position ourselves to make sure that we're in a right frame of mind, right, position with God to be able to help them to be the church of today. He's going to set them on fire. And even in this last week, Tim and I have seen some things that you could see the flames starting to, just like that spark starting to come alive. And for us, that's God's confirmation. Like, I'm about ready to do something. What I told you is coming to fruition. So it's exciting.
What I love about this battle plan is that I appreciate you have core program and strategy, DHQ strategies, and THQ. So on every level, it's not just, the core just need to start doing this. It's everybody on every level trying to jump in. What do you hope comes out of Raise, this new battle plan?
Well, I think Cheryl kind of alluded to it a moment ago. I think we get the sense that we're on the verge of an incredible revival, and there's going to be an incredible harvest of souls. And it's not going to come from the old fogies. We believe this revival is going to come through.
He means us.
He means
us.
Yeah.
Us.
Yeah. It's going to come through Gen Z and even younger. And so it's easy to look at the stats. It's easy to watch the news and to read what's happening around the globe and get kind of depressed and discouraged. But I will speak for me, and I think I speak for Cheryl too. We have this sense in our spirit that we are on the cusp of a mighty, mighty revival. And it's going to come through these younger generations. We're seeing the Lord speak through and work through these young people like I've never seen before. And Jamie, you're exactly right. If we can kind of harness these gifts that they have and this new younger mindset that may not exist in people like me, if we can kind of harvest that and harness it, the kingdom is going to grow like never before. And so we kind of get the sense that we're right there on the edge. And Cheryl and I have been praying, Lord, let us be positioned to be a part of it and to witness what takes place. And we certainly don't want to be on the outside looking in. We want to be a part of what's beginning to happen and what will happen in the days ahead.
Yeah, I think sometimes the tendency, as generations above or whatever, is we don't understand it. We're kind of scared by it, and so the tendency is to want to stifle it. But I think you should say, like, it doesn't matter where it comes from as long as the revival comes, right? So let's embrace it instead of being afraid of it. Let's embrace it and work together to make it happen. We all get to be a part of it, right? We all get a part of it, and it's for the furtherance of God's kingdom, not our own. Sometimes I think that tends to stop us because we want to build our own little kingdoms. But this is all about the furtherance of God's kingdom. So instead of trying to stifle those things that we don't understand or that are different, let's work together and embrace it and figure out how we can build the kingdom together.
Our job is to equip the saints, right? That's our job. And our kids are going to be equipped somehow. That could be through worldview or it could be through kingdom view. And we have an opportunity here to make a space for kingdom and to teach and equip in a kingdom mindset, right? And so those kids that you're talking about that have passion and all that, they're going to have passion either in a worldly way or in a kingdom way. And God's given us an opportunity right now to be able to set ourselves up for future, to be able to equip this generation. And so that's what we're excited about. That's what we hope to come out of it.
I keep saying all the time, like, we can't possibly miss. In the world we live in now, you can't possibly miss any swing. A spiritual swing is gonna connect because of just it's just good stuff. So, thank you for that. But tell us this too, like, what is there are people who listen to this podcast who don't know the South, or at least they have a stereotypical view of what they think the American Southland is. So we've asked the other territorial youth secretaries this question as well. Like, what's the vibe of ministering in the Southern Territory? What for people who don't know what it's like down south? Again, Captain Jamie and I are Southerners, so we understand grits and all that stuff. But what is it? Something unique to ministering in the Southern?
It's warmer.
United States?
It's warmer. I'm originally from the East. I grew up in upstate New York. It's warmer. Okay.
Listen, right now I am missing that warmer. I'm like, it's mid-May and it's cold. I'm wearing a sweater. Why is this a thing?
It's cold here today too. I mean, it's like what, high 60s? I don't know.
Yeah, I am missing that sun.
Well, there are a lot of funny things you can say about what makes the South unique or what makes us superior to the other regions of the country.
We're not editing. We're not editing that. Not editing.
But I want to get back to a spiritual conversation just for a second.
Bring it back to Jesus.
I really do get the sense there is a vibe that something incredible is about to happen. Listen, I can't wait to get to our Territorial Youth Institute this year. I'm not sure what's going to happen, and doggone it, if I'm not depressed that the two of you aren't going to be at TYI this year, Matt and Jamie.
We're sad about it too.
Listen, I am really, really, really upset that you can't be a part of it. But I get the sense that this is going to be kind of like a coming out party, post-COVID and revival. I wouldn't be surprised if revival has its genesis at TYI this year. So there's this real vibe. But you want to talk about something unique. I can't think of another territory in the United States where you have a camp that has to deal with alligators. So in fact, y'all just left the camp. I remember at a TYI just a few years ago on the Sunday morning worship, they had to wrangle an alligator right before the worship service that came up into the living quarters areas, the motel unit. But I don't think any other territory has to deal with alligators.
Fair. That's a good answer. Good answer.
Listen, if revival breaks out at TYI, and we will certainly pray that it is so, call us and we'll just ditch that other conference we have to be at, hop on a plane and make our way. Like, sorry, commish, we got to go.
I think for our listeners out there, I think we should be praying for that. Definitely that, not just for the Southern Territory, of course, but revival to break out. I mean, we are on. We all feel it. We are on the edge of something. So let us be praying for the Lord to do it in His time to make it happen. Sorry, I interrupted you, Tim. What were you saying?
No, I was going to say, and where you guys are going, I think something incredible is going to happen in Colorado too. So I think again, going back to the Lord strategically placing people where he needs to put them. So I don't want to discount what the Holy Spirit's going to do where you are. So you listen, if you can't tell, I'm super excited about what the Lord's getting ready to do. So.
All right. So if you need something to do this summer in August, you got the Territorial Youth Institute in South, and you got the National Seminar on Holiness happening in Colorado. All right. Well, one of our last big ones, and this is a great one too, because youth ministry, it can be tiring. It can beat you up after a while, but what's your go-to story? Maybe it's something that happened when you were divisional youth leaders. Maybe it's something that just happened last week, but what's your go-to story that keeps you doing what you're doing? When you saw in your ministry, a heart changed, a life changed by Jesus, what story do you sometimes have to refer to just to remind you not to give up and to keep going? We'd love to hear that.
Have you ever had anyone on this podcast cry yet?
We've had some people get teary.
Well, this might be a first. When Cheryl and I were first appointed as DYSs, we were at our very first camp, our first week of camp, got to the end. And at the end of camp, we typically have an altar call after the worship service. And of course, dozens of kids come up and they accept Jesus Christ. We had a young boy, our first ever week of camp, give his heart and life to Jesus Christ. And of course, we celebrated. I mean, we clapped, we cheered, we hugged. I mean, it was just an exciting time. Well, this kid goes back home, changed forever, and the next week goes out to ride his bike and gets hit by a car and doesn't survive. But I've thought about that over and over and over again. What if that boy did not come to camp? Where would he be in eternity? What would happen to his soul forever if he had not had the camp experience? So I think other territories say the same thing, but in the South, we say over and over again, camp changes lives. Certainly, I think about this story over and over again, and it makes me want to be the best I can be, because you never know what's going to happen from moment to moment. But I'm thankful that this young boy happened to be at camp, and I'm glad that Cheryl and I happened to be there to witness this and then to be a part of this young man's eternity.
Yeah, camp. Camp changed my life. I will forever be a camp advocate. I'm so excited that camp is happening in some places. Unfortunately, not every Salvation Army camp is going to get to open this summer, but a lot of them are. And so even though it might look different, we're excited about what God is going to do this summer. Our kids, I think, need it so much to be able to just get back to a place where they can be out in nature and they can, be kids and enjoy all those things and not have to, be in front of their computers doing virtual school. And, they can just go out and have a great time and grow and be discipled. I'm so excited. Even selfishly for my own kids are going to get to go to camp. And I'm just looking forward to how that is going to minister to them in a time when they really just need it so desperately.
Jamie, I think one of your camp teachers was one of the best that's ever lived. So
yeah,
I was going to say, honestly, I think it's awesome that we have all of you guys in the room, because I'm going to put my wife's business out there. Like Jamie was saved at camp because of a Bible study
taught by Major Tim Gilliam. So the Lord definitely used that week. And I'll be straight up honest, and I think I've told you this before. I did not sign up for that class because of the subject lesson, but I knew from being at camp that if any class was going to have a good time, it was going to be Tim Gilliam's class. Like, it was not going to be boring. It was going to be, fantastic. And the Lord used that class in an incredible way in my life. And even having grown up in the church, I was just not serious at all about my faith until that class, until that summer. And so I tell that story all the time, and I do tell them, listen, I didn't care about the class. I just knew the teacher was going to be good. So,
can we use this as a shameless plug for camps this year? I mean, there might be Corps officers who are listening to this who are like, okay, I didn't go to camp. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Why should I invest in camp, or why should I send kids to camp? Let these stories just inspire you today to send kids to camp, to promote it to your families. Right? We know this year might look a little different, but in the years to come, when camp is full on, and even if this year you have an opportunity, please send kids to camp. Talk to parents about camp. let them know it's a safer environment where their kids could have life-changing, eternal transformations, and because it's so important.
43 camps nationwide is when it's not Corona. We've said there are over 50,000 American children come to Salvation Army camps in the summer. And it's, to me, in my opinion, I know we're youth guys, so we're biased, but that's fine. It's one of the most evangelistic things that we do. As best as we can tell, nearly half the kids that come to Salvation Army camps make some sort of decision or commitment to follow Jesus. So camp changes lives and eternities for sure.
And the cool thing is we meet people years later who went to camp as kids and still remember, how transformative it was. We talked to, I think it was a nurse at a hospital in Florida. And when she found out we're from the Salvation Army, she's like, "Oh, I worked at Camp Keystone when I was a teenager. It was the best summer of my life.
I wrestled alligators there."
So even, decades later, people remember the experiences that they had at camp and how meaningful it was in their life. So yes, if you have the opportunity to send your kid to a Salvation Army summer camp, make it happen. It is just incredibly impactful in ways that we may not even realize for years to come.
All right, Captain Jamie, always the last question, our favorite.
My favorite question. All right. What is giving you joy in this crazy, crazy life that we're living? We always look for, sometimes it's even the little things. So what is bringing you joy this week?
I was going to go spiritual, but now I am not. Okay.
Cool.
Because my back deck on a nice 70-degree day and Jenny's ice cream brings me joy.
Hey, Jenny's ice cream. Jenny's ice cream is they find 2 bougie flavors and they just pick one. Let's try raspberry and lavender. And let's see how that tastes.
Okay. You might have to help me with the name of it, but it's the butter cake, gooey butter cake.
Yes,
oh my gosh. I'm a chocoholic, people. I mean, give me chocolate peanut butter all the time, every day. But when I go to Jenny's, what do I get, Tim? Gooey butter cake. It is the best.
That's such a Southern answer, which I
love. We have a Jenny's right down the street. So next time you're up here, we'll have to go.
Oh, September.
Yes, that's right. It's excellent. All right, Tim, what about you? What's giving you joy?
Usually I'm the one that attempts to be funny and to inject humor, but I'm not making this up when I say, well, Dr. Pepper Zero cream soda is pretty good. It brings me joy. But I want to say that in the last couple months, the thing that's really brought me joy is being part of our Territorial Candidates Council. Not only have we seen an uptick in the number of accepted candidates, I personally know some of their stories of transformation, and we're seeing miracles right before our eyes. We had a video testimony a couple weeks ago of a guy that I found outside of our shelter with no shoes, no shirt on a day that was 20-something degrees. He was drinking 3 6-packs of beer a day, and we wouldn't even allow him in our shelter. He wouldn't even qualify to come in our shelter for some reason. My facilities guy says, "Hey, I know someone who can get you in." Right, Major Tim? So we got him in. We got him a coat. We got him some shoes. He blazed through our program, and now he's the first accepted candidate for 2022. And listen, you want to talk about someone who was crying. When his video was up on the screen, I was just bawling like a baby because I knew where he came from, and I see where he is now. He's a student of the Word. He's an evangelist at heart, leading everyone he can to Jesus Christ. And Canada's Council, of all things, brings me joy these days. And so I wouldn't have said that 2 years ago, but the last several months, it has brought me a lot of joy.
No, and it's an answer to prayer, right? Because we've kind of been going through, if you're in Salvation Army circles, or even if you're not, you may know that we haven't had the response to candidates that we have enjoyed in the past. It's been smaller sessions, and I think it's kind of caused a lot of introspection, but also kind of a lot of fear and anxiety about what does this mean for our denomination if we don't have people who are wanting to lead. And so it's a God thing that now you can sit in those things and feel joy and not fear and tension, right?
Right.
Yeah. God's doing a new thing.
Have any candidates came up, Major, that were the naked people sitting on the cabins?
No, they already went through.
No,
That was
they've
already gone
They
through.
got there before you had a chance. I understand that.
They're your age. Those are people who are in my cabin.
I wasn't me. For anybody out there who's assuming things right now, it's
But
not
several
me.
of those people in the
Had your
cabin were
name.
named Matt.
Listen,
I bet I could guess. If
Yeah.
you gave me, I bet I could name about probably a handful of
Yes.
people who might have
Yes.
been involved in that.
what's giving me joy is I just came this week from my first in-person conference in over a year, which is just nice to say. But the National Network of Youth Ministries. So like the Salvation Army is allowed at the table, Crew, which is now Campus Crusade for Christ, Dare to Share, Assemblies of God. Anybody that has some sort of youth ministry is welcome to the table. And it is refreshing to see that there are other people doing youth ministry. Sometimes it's easy for us to think, man, we just feel like we're slugging it out alone. But it's nice to see that there are other people doing youth ministry. And the very cool thing is in the body of Christ, we are all on the same team. And that sometimes we just need the reminder. And that was my kick in the face this week. So it's given me joy that number one, to be in person with people again. And then secondly, to know that there are other team members on this team.
Elizabeth, what about you? What's bringing you joy this week?
I'm going to go with the official state drink of Rhode Island, coffee milk.
Coffee milk.
My mom's having some syrup in the mail. And
What's
Coffee
coffee
milk?
milk?
it's just, like chocolate milk, you get like syrup.
Oh,
It's
wait,
just
so
coffee
hold
flavored.
on.
So it's like Hershey's, but coffee.
Back this truck up. So there's we put chocolate syrup in milk. You're saying there is a coffee
Syrup.
flavored syrup that you
Yes,
put in
it's
milk.
Eclipse syrup. They make vanilla milk. They do
Okay.
coffee milk.
If that ain't some Yankee
Okay,
thing,
but
then I'm
does it
worried
have
about.
caffeine in it? Because if it doesn't, why? I'm just saying.
I don't think there's caffeine, but it is so delicious.
Is there gluten?
Elizabeth, when we come back to the office, you're going to have to hook us up. We're going to have a taste test on some podcast episode.
I mean, when I was young, I used to have coffee milk. My parents would put a tad of coffee and then the milk in there, but not
Yeah,
this
that's
much
what-
milk, this much
concentrated.
coffee.
That's my assumption too. Coffee milk. I think a cup of coffee and you pour in milk is like creamer.
No, this is the real deal. This is just straight
This
up
is
sugar.
95% milk, 5% coffee syrup.
Exactly.
Okay,
So
we're going to have
good.
to try this. Elizabeth's mom, hook us up.
Christine's on it.
Christine, Rhode Island. Christine from Rhode Island. Happy Mother's Day. Send coffee milk.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's giving me joy this week? I'm actually, so last weekend, it's only been a week, which seems crazy. I got a call from my dad, which isn't out of the ordinary, but he said, Jamie, I need to tell you something. And that always puts the fear of God in you a little bit. But he said, I want to surprise your mom for Mother's Day. So I've been working with Matt and we're flying you in so you can spend the weekend with your mom and your sisters. So this past weekend, I unexpectedly, at the drop of a hat, dropped everything and flew out to be with my mom and my sisters. And it was exactly what my soul needed in that time, to be able to just laugh with these ladies who know me better than anybody. And we just had the best time, all those silly girl things that you do with the face masks and all that stuff. But we just had the best time. I am exhausted. I am behind on my work, but my soul is happy to be able to have spent that time with my people.
That makes me happy for
who I
you.
love.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And big shout out to my husband who held the fort down and did the dad thing so I could fly across the country and
I went to a
see my
conference.
mama.
Well, while you're enjoying your coffee milk out on the back deck with your Jenny's ice cream and candidates board at National Network of Youth Ministries, we just want to say thank you again to the Gilliams for their leadership of the Southern Territory and the youth. Great people, great friends. And thank you guys.
Thank
for,
you.
Yes.
Thank you guys for
Thank you for
inviting
what you
us
do.
here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We want our listeners to be praying for not only the new battle plan, but for revival and for all our territories where youth ministry is happening each and every day.
Yeah, and we should say, if you want to check out what they're doing, go to Youth Down South. You can say Youth Down South on social media. And is it youthdownsouth.org?
It is. It's getting a facelift right now, so you're going to see a lot of TYI
Yes.
stuff. But
Brand new
yeah,
website.
so
Same
Monday
address.
it'll go live. But it's getting a facelift right now.
Excellent.
Nice. Yeah, go check out all the exciting things that are happening. Youth Down South.
That's going to end this episode of the Battle Line Podcast. So be sure to subscribe to the Battle Line wherever you listen to podcasts, and be sure to check out the Peer website at peermag.org, or follow Peer on all the socials at peer.magazine. Lastly, we have a sister podcast called the Fight for Good Podcast. Check them out. Until next time, again, thank you, Majors. This has been the Battle Line Podcast. Bye.